Okay, I'm gonna start recording and we can jump right in. Did you have a good
Okay.
week?
Okay, I'm here. Oops.
You can hear me okay?
I need to put the volume a bit
Okay.
louder. How do I do that now? Okay.
I just lost your video, but that's okay.
Okay. All right. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Yep. Good to see
All
you.
right.
Why don't we open up in some prayer? Oh, I think you just froze up on me here. Let's see. Oh, there you are. Sorry, you kind of cut out for a second.
Okay.
All right, let me pray for us.
Okay.
God, thank you for this day, and I pray that we can just connect over this next hour or so, learn more about you and your world and mentoring and just the good work that you called Audley to. And God, thank you for this time that we get to spend together. Pray that it will be fruitful and that we would bring honor and glory to you in the name of Jesus Christ. We ask all this in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Okay.
So did you have a good week?
It was a full week. It's a full weekend. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
How did you do the rite of passage service for the girls?
That took place. Yes. Oops. Oh my gosh. What I'm here. I'm lost you here. Okay. Why are we out? Yes. It took place on Sunday evening, and we're very encouraged by the turnout, by the participants, and the overall sense that it has potential to really make a difference. With more lead time, because this was only 1 year we had working with these young girls. So now, we can start planning with the idea that we would have a longer preparation period for them, in order that it becomes a culmination instead of more a celebration.
Sure.
In an indirect way, we have been working with them, but this past year was very intentional, especially with the girls who were turning 18. And so happened this year that we had 3 of them who turned 18 in 2018. So there were 2,000 children, there were 2,000 kids, year 2000 born. Yeah, one was 24. So we really had a good representation of that age group. Yeah. We'd hoped to have had those who were much older, but hadn't had one of these ceremonies. But it didn't work out in terms of their own schedule. So we realized the earlier, but they're more advanced in age, so it would be more of a celebration of their lives reaching 18 and on. So we weren't as concerned about them in terms of being part of the program, but we wanted to include them in the celebration for them to have this kind of, turning point or this kind of significant milestone mark. So that didn't work out, but still, we're thankful it did happen. Yeah.
Yeah. I really love what you're doing. That's so great, just to incorporate that into the lives of young people and young adults especially.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're making a lot of great progress, even though it doesn't always go exactly as we plan it.
That's right. Interestingly enough, though, I tried to duplicate what we did with the young men, because I'm doing it for the past 15 years with the boys. So when I brought it to the ladies and tell them what we did, they, from the perspective of a woman, was able to tweak it. Where, for instance, there was a place where we had, when it came to the ceremony itself, we normally have the men sitting on one side and women sitting on one side, and they necessarily didn't see that as important, But they did have the dads speak. Because normally we don't have women speak as well. But the dad spoke a word of affirmation, encouragement to the young ladies, to their daughters.
Wow.
In one case, an uncle. And that in itself went well, though the dads who spoke, so 2 of them actually used it as a way to preach to their daughters. I mean, oh my goodness. I mean, yeah, so that part I thought was kind of touchy, because they were speaking into their lives, but yet bringing some personal issues into it. And so it didn't really go across as planned. But it was good that they had an input in it too, because you wanted them to, feel that dads are important, and a healthy relationship with dad is critical to part of the process. So I think that part of it, we still need to, I guess, coach the dads to better use occasion to affirm as opposed to chastise or to admonish, Yeah. But yeah, I think it was worth it. Yeah, it was worth it. Yeah.
Well, can you remind me, what's your church like? Are you non-denominational, or are you part of a denomination?
Yeah, we're part of what's called the Baptist Convent. What? Are you familiar with the Baptist World Alliance?
I believe so. Yeah.
Well, okay. Baptist World Alliance is the Baptist body that covers, I think, over 35 million Baptists from across the globe.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Our church is part of the provincial and the Canadian national and North American Fellowship of Baptists. So that's how we relate. So we have been, as a church, we've been around since 1980.
Okay.
It was named Lyle Memorial Baptist Church in memory of George Lyle, who was a freed slave from America who went to Jamaica and started the first Baptist work there. So the Baptist Church in Jamaica came out of his ministry. One of his sons, as it were, one young man who grew up in the Baptist Church in Jamaica, came to Canada to live and to study. He eventually became a missionary in Nigeria. While he was in Nigeria, he got this Christmas card saying that there are many people, from the Caribbean who are in this particular area where we are now, basically who need the gospel. So he sends a call to come back to Canada and to begin a work in this community where I'm in now, which at that time had a new immigrant population of a good number of Caribbean folks. So the church was started by him as the founding pastor in 1980. And then he resigned in 1984 in order to go back to work with the mission. Now, he thought automatically I would be the successing pastor because I was now working with him as the youth pastor. But I didn't sense a call to ministry in that context, because I came to work with him in the community because of a number of Caribbean folks here. My dream and plans were to actually go back to Jamaica, where I'm from, in order to be like a Bible teacher in the public schools, because that could be done there in high school. So my idea was to come here in the community to get some experience, work with young people before I go back to Jamaica. So while I was doing that, working with Youth Unlimited, Youth of Christ, he had said he resigned. And so he thought I would succeed him, but I didn't sense a call to ministry in this context. So I agreed to be on the pulpit committee to search for a successor. So after 3 years of looking and didn't find a suitable person, I agreed that I would do a 6-month interim to see if that would be a good fit. And after that, then the rest is history. So I'm here since 1987 as a pastor, not thinking this would have extended the period of time. Yeah. Because initially, I went to a Bible school here in Canada, and at one of the missions conference I attended, I recall signing a card that says, anywhere, anytime, any place, a commitment to missions. And while I was at school, I also had received some funding from some funders who commit to give money to students who plan to go back to their homeland to minister. So I got money under that as well. So in the back of my mind, I had an obligation to go back, if not to Jamaica, to some other place to minister. So when I came into this community and the pastorate, in the back of my mind, I still think this wasn't any place, anywhere, anytime. I felt, that I had an obligation to return to the Caribbean or somewhere else. So I'm still trying to accept. I think I'm accepting now that probably this is where anytime, any place, anywhere was. The mission field could be in Canada, and so that's where I'm at right now. And
Wow.
at the stage now where, after 31 years, I'm looking now at that transition that needs to take place. So my prayer is I would find a Joshua to take that role up, because I'm seeing where into the next phase of life that I could be, I see myself doing what I'm doing in terms of this rite of passage, this guiding. I use the broad term now, providing guidance on the journey to adulthood, because all this time up to a year ago, it was primarily boys. But now, since we have started this ministry to the girls, I can see it can be two tracks. Whatever I'm learning now through this process of working with boys, I'm going to try and seek to transfer it. So that's where I am still using the focus on boys, but being able to make application when it comes to the girls. So eventually I could see myself, developing a ministry that provides the services both to young men and to young girls, and get the necessary funding. So that's where I'm leaning towards. Yeah.
Would this be back in the Caribbean or pretty much anywhere?
Well, no, but I'll do it here. I mean, the whole idea is to have it made in Canada or in Toronto here, but it's transferable. So the hope and the prayer is that I can use it. It can be transferable, across cultures and churches. So that's eventually what I see, it could happen. Yeah, should happen.
Yeah. Great. Do you have anyone at your church now that you have an eye on as your Joshua, or no?
Not well. One potential, but he's a young Timothy. He's far down to me. He's a 13-year-old. Actually, I do have an associate pastor. It was more So, but I'm not necessarily seeing him as the one. He's an older person too. So I was looking for someone much younger, that I thought would be able to come up to the ranks, and it comes to demographics too. I think we need a younger person as well in order to be able to relate and to reach that demographics. Yeah.
What's the makeup of your church now? I mean, it was originally two.
Makeup is predominantly, I would say 90% are Caribbean background.
Okay.
We have had a few influx of Nigerians now, because the associate pastor and his wife and family are Nigerians, and we have had about 4 or 5. So in terms of other ethnic groups, the Nigerians are the next ones that are, can be counted. We do have a Ghanaian family. The rest are, primarily first generation Canadian are immigrants who are here. Yeah. And it become an aging population. To the average age has, gone up, because many have been part of the church since we started.
Sure.
So I think our median age is probably in the 40s or so, or 50s. Yeah. So it's an aging population. Yeah.
And is this like a full-time vocational position for you, or are you bivocational, or like?
Who's that? Myself?
Yeah, yourself.
Yeah, I'm full-time. Yeah, full-time. So, but next year though, I'm planning to. Well, I'm going to be cutting down on my hours, to concentrate on the studies. Sure. As part of that transition too. So eventually, I see myself transitioning out. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, great. Well, thanks for sharing some of your context with me. I felt like I talked a lot last time in our Zoom, so I wanted to make sure you had some.
Okay.
I have some things for us to talk about, but I want to make sure you get a chance to get what you want out of this independent study course.
Well, let me try and get louder. I'm still not hearing too well.
So I can lean in a little bit closer. That's
okay.
Yeah. So, did you get a chance to get set up with Populi yet? I know.
Yes. Actually, I didn't realize I was already on.
Okay.
I didn't know that. I think the term kind of threw me off. I thought it was something special, different, but it was basically it's the register onto the system. Yeah. So I'm on now. Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So just let me. I mean, I wanted to carve out some time if you needed to walk through any of that, but it sounds like you're in there, and
Right,
the main thing was just getting registered. I might
right.
I'll post our recordings from our Zoom sessions in there, and I'll put the course syllabus in there and things like that. Uh,
Okay,
Maybe some little updates here and there, just because for accreditation purposes, they want to know that you and I are connecting. This is kind of the
okay,
biggest deal with the independent studies is they want to make sure that they have documentation that
okay.
actual academic course, and we're working on things together.
Right, right, right. Okay.
I'm glad you got that squared away. And
Mm.
um, do you have? I have, like I said, I have a couple things that we could talk through. Did you have anything that you wanted to talk through based off of anything that you read or that you wanted to bring to the conversation? And like I said, if not, I can tee something up for us to
Yeah.
talk about.
Well, just to update too, the weekend not only had the Rite of Passage celebration, but also we had I call it a workshop on the topic of reaching the next generation, Generation Z. I guess you said Generation Z in America. But I had a resource person from our Baptist convention to come to share in this workshop. It was Saturday morning, and we have just about half the congregation there. I
Wow.
was about 20 odd who were there. It was very encouraging because the whole idea was to have had them get a sense as to what this generation is about, and then first to consider what it means to reach them. Because next year, the theme is passing the baton of faith to the next generation, in particular Generation Z. So the idea then is to understand who they are. Also use the opportunity to catch up with, evaluate I mentioned to you before, the Praying for You ministry that we're trying to launch, the campaign.
Yeah.
So it was an opportunity to get feedback from the group who were involved, as well as to inspire and encourage others to get involved. So from that, I gathered that one, there needs to be more encouragement of those who are involved, and in terms of sharing the vision as what it can take, and then to prepare them for the next step, which is journey with you. Interestingly enough, there were some who were already saying, praying for you is not enough. We should do more than that. So they're ahead of the game in terms of thinking, I just don't want to pray. I want to do, walk with them. One particular lady, she was feeling guilty that she didn't take time to have coffee with a child and with a student. But the point was not for her to even go that far. So I think there are some now who already are willing to go beyond praying. And the whole idea was to start with prayer, with the idea that eventually we can say to them, would you be willing to take the next step? So I'm glad to see that there are some who are already thinking going beyond prayer.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean that's it. You already have some that are set up in relationships where they're interacting beyond prayer, right? So this is more you're just kind of.
Well, not quite. I mean, that's where I want to go next. But prayer is basically ask them to pray daily, provide them with a prayer guide that they can, which is scriptural based, that they can use as a prayer guide for the for each day they pray.
Yeah.
Encourage them to just touch base on a Sunday morning, say hi, how are you? Ask a prayer request. So it's very low key, just in terms of praying and just keep touching base, not going beyond, trying to meet or
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, what the workshop was well received.
It was well received. Yes, well received. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And do you have any more things in the works? I mean, one of the things you could do for your project for this course is write a little bit about that workshop and how it was received in your congregation, and just kind of flesh that out a little bit. What were you hoping for, and what are some things that you could continue to build on from that?
So that could be part of a journal then, part of the journal entry, you said?
Yep, that would be great. Yeah, just kind of reflect on it a little bit. Same thing with your rite of passage ceremony.
That's right. Okay.
So this independent study is a chance for you to kind of flesh out what are the theological underpinnings for that? What are the practical implications? How are you experiencing it? And that'll be good.
Okay.
but I think I just asked you this, but do you have more things in the works like that in the weeks or months to come?
In terms of,
In terms of like a workshop or a rite of passage ceremony, or was this kind of like the?
well, yeah, the rite of passage normally, as I said, is normally for the young men. Normally, it's around June.
Okay.
Well, in the past, we've done around June. So, and then they tend to be, well, either one or the other, both. We have one for those who turn 13 and for those who turn 18.
Okay.
So last year we had for 18-year-old young men plus. So I think this coming year we may look at if the 13-year-olds. Yeah.
I see.
And then for the girls now, I'm looking at getting some funding for us to start with a 13-year-old rite of passage, because for next year we don't have any young ladies right now who have turned 18. So in a couple of years, I think we'll have that demographics again, plus to give us more lead time to be able to prepare them. Because as I said before, I want to see it as a combination instead of a celebration. And when the time is short, it really is not really a combination of like a process you have taken them through. So that's what I want to be able to do. Yeah. The longer the lead time, the better it is for us, because then you'd have had more input into their lives that way. Yeah.
Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear that you're making progress there, and I love the concept that you have, especially the 13-year-old and the 18-year-old with the boys. I think it's really cool. So it'll be interesting to see. I know girls are different. I mean, they still require some of that, mentoring and development and things like that. And there's different nuances to it. So I'm glad you hear some of that as well. So. And even, it's funny giving the microphone to a dad or, someone like that, it's always risky, but even if the words don't come out, exactly as you kind of hope,
yes.
Special thing. So. So, well, why don't I'm going to share my screen with you. I wanted to share, first of all, before I do that, have you heard of the 40 developmental assets from the search? 40 developmental assets.
No.
Okay, so this will be one thing I'm going to show you. If you do a Google search between now and next week, you can take a look at these. There's all kinds of research about these, but I'm going to share the screen and we can just talk through some of these.
Okay.
Let's see. So all I did here was I did a Google search for 40 developmental assets, and then there was just the first link that came up I clicked on. It's a PDF. And I'll try to maybe download this and put this in Populi too. But essentially what this is based off of a whole bunch of research from an organization. It's based out of Minnesota. It's called the Search Institute. They do a whole bunch of great research on young people and the different stages of development with young people. And what they identified in their research are these 40 developmental assets. So a little bit of what they're trying to do is oftentimes societies look at young people as problems to be fixed. Like they're lacking in all these areas, and it's our responsibility as adults to kind of fix them. And oftentimes, as you're probably familiar with, that's not the greatest approach to try to it's not much fun for the young people and not much fun for the adults if everyone feels like the young people are always falling short of expectations. So what the Search Institute is really passionate about with their youth development work is identifying assets that can be built up in young people. And this is a big thing for Baki Graduate University. As you're probably already aware, especially since you went to Fresno, you saw some great examples of asset-based community development.
Right.
So you look at a neighborhood and you don't try to fix the neighborhood or see what's wrong with it. You try to build on what God's already doing there. This is a really similar, this doesn't happen to be a Christian organization, but it's a really similar approach, looking at young people as assets and the assets that they have that they can contribute to the community. So through their research at Search Institute, they identified these 40 assets. And the reason that this research has really taken off in the youth development world is because it's really, you can kind of wrap your mind around it. If you just take a young person, you can actually kind of survey them and test them to see which of these assets that they currently have and which ones that they don't have. And then you can work as a pastor or as a mentor or as a prayer person to kind of build them up in the areas where they're maybe not as built up in those assets. So you might look at a young person that's 18, that's totally out of control, committing lots of crimes, taking advantage of people in their relationships, no vision for their life, and just having a really hard time. And if you study a lot of the young people that are troubled like that, you might see that they might only have overall 5 or 6 assets that have been fully developed. Mm. So, you kind of go, where do I start with this young person? They're really troubled, and I don't even know where to begin. And this kind of provides a framework. You know what? I think we can build them up in some of these other areas, and we're going to get some ground and help to build them up. Next thing you know, they might have 10 or 12 or 15. When you look at a young person that's 18 years old and really thriving in life, maybe they're just doing great emotionally, physically, spiritually, physically, and they're just kind of thriving in life. Oftentimes when they test out, they'll have between 35 and 40 of these developmental assets. You can kind of get the picture of why they ended up in such a healthy place. Mm-hmm. So the goal is to try to, from when children are young all the way through young adulthood, like we talked about last time, that could be all the way up to age 25, is to try to build up, maybe find out where some of the gaps are, and then just kind of build up the young people in some of these areas. So I'll scroll down here a little bit, and like I said, I'll either email this to you or put it in the online classroom. But you can see the a lot of the
percentage. What's the point of the percentage? What?
I think, let me see what it is for this one, because this is just this one particular survey. The percentages of young people who report experiencing each asset were gathered from the administration of the Search Institute Profiles of Student Life, Attitudes, and Behavior survey of almost 90,000 youth in the 2010 school year. So these are the percentages of young people who report experiencing these assets out of 90,000 young people that were interviewed. So, I mean, something like family support being 72%, that's great that, out of 90,000 youth surveyed, 72% of them felt like they have family support. It's kind of sad that 28% would not express that in a survey. Right. That seems pretty high to me. Versus something like this, positive family communication. Young person and her or his parents communicate positively, and young person is willing to seek advice and counsel from parents. So that's a pretty fascinating gap right there. Yep. I mean,
I think that's what I saw came out in the read passage with the fathers too. It's obvious that the communication wasn't that great, and even one dad seemed to have used that opportunity to speak when she had spoken privately.
Yeah.
So that was kind of off from that. Yeah. So yeah, that's.
Well, you know what?
That's one girl. She seemed like she was cringing when he was talking. So he said, "Okay."
This is a really helpful tool though when you're doing trainings and things like that, and as you're developing your curriculum. When you develop your curriculum and you do some coaching, you might do some training before you even have the actual rite of passage event, and sit down with the parents and say, communication is really key here.
I didn't hear that. Sorry. I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that.
Oh, you didn't hear that?
No.
So this could be used as a training tool when you're working with the adults that are helping to mentor the young people.
Right.
Is to help, and even when you're pastoring your families, I know for me as a pastor, when I work with families, in my context, I'm kind of working really hard to keep the families together, not even really communicating well, just keep the families together. But then once they are together and committed, trying to work with them to bring about positive communication in their homes. So it's a good training because you're trying to develop a curriculum with your.
That's right.
Right. So.
But actually, it's more for the boys. But I realize the parental involvement is critical.
Sure.
At the end of the day, I'm sensing that parents need to be the primary mentors, as it were, guides, and we are supporting them. So I'm trying to shift to thinking that we are the ones who have the answer to their, or we are the ones who provide it.
Yeah.
But we supplement. So I'm really wanting to be conscious of that need to work more closely with parents.
Yeah.
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 The younger they are, because I know the older you get, the less likely they can be, good communication. But one of the things we want to do is, for instance, with the younger boys, is to have a almost like a parental workshop support group that runs simultaneously. So when when the boys come onto the program, then we'll have a time periodically for the mothers, to be instructed how to bring up their boys. That's an idea.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's some things that you could really incorporate based off of this research. And the important thing about this for you is when you're designing your curriculum for the boys, or even for some of the parents or or mentors, this is all based off of really sound research. So you're going to want to incorporate, as you're writing your doctoral dissertation, you're going to want to incorporate these types of perspectives to back up what you're hoping to do with the young people. And even with your research project for this course, you're going to want to try to back it up with, when you identify an organization that has surveyed 90,000 young people, you want to, so that's way more research than you can possibly ever do on your own.
Okay.
So you just want to incorporate those researchers' perspectives to back up the work that you're doing. And so if you look at the different ones here, what I wanted to bring your attention to is, one thing you could do is kind of run what you're doing through this lens of 40 developmental assets. And you could try to identify which parts of your program or curriculum actually build up in certain areas. So one example would be like this one, number 3, other adult relationships. Young person receives support from 3 or more non-parent adults. This could be a pastor. It could be a mentor. It could be, lots of different people. Could be a relative who's an aunt or an uncle. But young people need to have at least 3 or more non-parent adults that are building up positive assets in their life. And this is one area that mentoring programs really thrive, because you're really contributing to that area. Caring neighborhood, caring school climate, parent involvement in schooling. Again, with my mentoring program here in Pittsburgh, I see some development. I see some direct influence in these assets for young people: caring neighborhood, caring school climate, parent involvement in schooling, because we work directly with the schools as well. So we send mentors at lunchtime to go in and spend time with the kids. It's helping to build. These are mentors from their own neighborhood oftentimes. And so, but one of the things we don't do with our mentoring, we do provide some family support, but it's not as strong in that area. But like even something like positive family communication in our mentoring relationships, the mentors, they might take the young person out for ice cream and say, "Hey, how's things going with your mom?" "Oh, she yelled at me last week and she's drinking a lot, and things aren't really good right now. But we had a good day yesterday. We went to the park." And so you can just you can encourage the young person on how to communicate more effectively with their parent, even through the context of having a volunteer mentoring relationship. This one right here, another good example, community values youth. Young person perceives that adults in the community value youth. So because you have a church in that location, or you're working with these families, the young people will feel like they have a stronger connection to the fabric of the community and other adults that care for them. Youth as resources, service to others, and safety. Young person feels safe. This little one, like number 9, service to others. This is a great thing that mentors can do or your church can do to help build up young people in that asset. So in my neighborhood, there's a lot of trash around, and I was driving down the street with one young person I was mentoring, and he rolled down the window of my car and threw his drink out the window and littered. And I was like, "Why? I live in this neighborhood too. Why are you littering on my neighborhood?" And so one of the things I did with him was the next time there was an opportunity that came up, I took him to a community cleanup in his own neighborhood, and he helped to pick up trash in the neighborhood as a part of that. Was our mentoring activity for the day, you know. And it's not because I was trying to be mean to him. I was actually trying to build him up in this number 9 asset that he viewed his life as, you know, service to others. Do you do any type of service learning with your boys and or girls on the rite of passage stuff?
The girls have been able to do some of that when they've been to a nursing home as part of their.
Oh, great.
But the boys, we haven't done that much yet. We haven't done, we need to work on them. One thing we do ask them to do, the older ones, some have taken up the challenge of becoming a mentor or coming like for the younger guys. So the older ones meet on a Friday night, the younger ones meet on a Saturday night. So sometimes we have had the older ones come to the Saturday night program to help out with the younger guys.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's oftentimes called peer mentoring, where you have people working with other young mentors.
Matter of interest, the demographics of those surveyed, do you have idea who were surveyed, like
we'll have to
ethnic or even the socio-economic background? Did they give that?
I don't know off the top of my head. I know.
I'm sorry?
It was a pretty, I think it was a nationwide survey in the U.S., is my understanding.
Okay.
That could be an opportunity for some research for you, you know, to see if it would, to get the demographical information. I'm sure they've made it available.
Okay.
For the sake of time, I'm going to kind of cruise through the rest of these, and then we can see if maybe any pop out to you that you're curious about that you want to talk about. Boundaries and expectations is this next kind of broad category. Family boundaries, school boundaries, neighborhood boundaries, adult role models. Again, that's a direct thing that you can influence there. Positive peer influence and high expectations from parents. Interesting, if you see the gap right here, I mean, this is the lowest percentage from the survey. Parents and other adults models responsible behavior. Constructive use of time, creative activities, youth programs, religious community, and time at home. I think it's really interesting. This creative activities asset is one of the lowest on here. Young person spends 3 or more hours per week in lessons or practice in music, theater, or the arts. When you think about how young people today are so disconnected from the world around them because of technology and smartphones, and they could be in a room with people but not really doing anything creative. That this is something that in our youth mentoring program we'll try to create spaces for young people to be creative, you know, and contribute back to the life of the church. Moving through here, commitment to learning, achievement motivation, school engagement, homework, bonding to school, reading for pleasure. Again, these are in our youth mentoring program. This is just a couple examples. You know, a young person might not like their school at all, but on the day that their mentor is going to show up at their school, all of a sudden they love school that day because they're going to show up to spend time with their mentor. So we're helping directly in that area.
Okay.
Reading for pleasure. We encourage our mentors just to sit and go to the library and read a book with the young person and teach them to learn to love to read. Positive values, caring, equality and social justice, integrity, honesty, responsibility, restraint. These ones for Christians obviously those are things that we should be working with our young people on all the time. Social competencies, planning and decision making. That's a really good one that mentors can help out with, is kind of helping young people to have a vision for their life that they implement. Interpersonal competence, cultural competence, resistance skills, peaceful conflict resolution. This can be a huge one right here.
Right.
And then, the last one with positive identity, personal power, self-esteem, sense of purpose, positive view of personal future. So that could be a fun exercise for you to go through, kind of run your curriculum and some of your experiences through this lens and see, kind of identify which assets you feel like you can make some significant influence with as you're planning out your curriculum.
Okay.
Did you want to discuss any of these ones that I kind of went through pretty quick?
Well, I think the one about the I don't think it's there, but you mentioned about at least three or more non-parent involvement. You mentioned
Yeah.
about each person, young person needs that. You said.
Yeah, it was the one up here. Young
Yeah,
person receives support from 3 or more non-parent adults.
yeah. So that kind of helps me to reaffirm the importance of even others praying for somebody. Even though you pray for your own child, you're inviting others to pray for your child. And at the same time, you pray for somebody else's child. So it's like a symbiotic relationship where, because I was very disappointed, one particular person, a leader in our church actually, he has backed off in this campaign, Pray for You campaign. And for him to do that, I'm thinking to myself, I guess he hasn't seen the value, or he has not caught the vision of what he can be doing. At the same time, recognizing that he needs others to be involved in his daughter's life. So it's to be able to help him to see, we all win when we are involved in somebody else's children's lives, as well as, your children being involved, you are being involved in someone else's life, and they are also having others involved in their own lives. So I think I can use this as a way of helping to encourage everyone to be involved.
Yeah.
When your child has succeeded and done well, you need to recognize that there is a place for you to help others to succeed as well.
That's great. That's a really kind of immediate personal application that you can make.
Yeah.
In the research.
So that's good.
Yeah, and a lot of this stuff that you already know intuitively because you've been doing this for so long. So again, because you're doing a deep dive on some of this research, it just helps to really strengthen your leadership with your congregation.
Right.
And even as you move towards building up a ministry in the future that is more specifically related to this, it's all going to be built on really sound research and backed up by science,
Right. Yeah. So how would you recommend using this now? I mean, it's a training. What would you recommend?
I've actually done mentoring trainings with volunteers from the church where I print this out and I go over this with them.
Okay.
So, because these researchers, did it much better than I ever could and did much more research than I ever could. And so it's kind of fun to point it out. And then I'll actually show them, this is what we want to try to get our young people to be built up in all 40 of these categories. And as a church, as a congregation, if our young people don't feel safe, which is number 10 here, then we're a church in this neighborhood and we need to go out of our way to help to make sure that our young people feel safe as an extension of our faith, even, so this is a good training tool. I mostly wanted to show it to you just for your research so that you would this is just one of, as one of many organizations that have really great research. Pastors tend to be really strong. I'm a pastor myself, so I'm saying this to myself. We tend to be pretty good at telling stories and at anecdotal evidence for things. We're usually pretty good communicators. And so research tools like this, especially when you're doing academic research at the doctoral level, can really help to, if you kind of merge the scientific research with your anecdotal evidence of the power of what God's doing through your work, then it can be a really powerful thing. So that was mostly why I wanted to show it to you.
Okay. Question. Is there the questionnaire that could be used in a local context, just to verify or just to even see where our young people fit in this assessment? Is there such a, is it available?
Yeah, let's do some. Let me do a search real quick here.
Okay.
Sorry, I forgot to keep sharing my screen with you here. All right, so I just did a Google search for the Search Institute. And So on their main website here, looks like they have some interesting resources. They have different workshops and trainings that they do.
Okay.
Let's check around and see a little bit if they have. We won't spend too much time on this, but if they have any surveys that we could. Surveys. Let's check this out. Yep. Choosing a survey, order a survey. Let's just go in here and attitudes and behaviors survey. Gives a snapshot of the current experiences, perspectives of your adolescent youth in your school, program, or community. There we go. Just a couple clicks away.
Okay.
Emphasizes the strengths and supports they currently have a need and how these positive indicators protect against youth risk behavior. This is great. I mean, it gives you, it looks like you have to pay for it, so we'll have to see how much they cost.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, so this website, all I did was just Google the Search Institute, and this all popped up. So you can get in there and look around, and maybe we'll make that an assignment, a part of your assignment for the course is just to identify a survey that you, that's an example of something that you could do as your research project for the course. It could also really help to serve your organization. And then one thing I want to look at, since you asked the question, I don't want to get too bogged down in here. Let's look at their research and see if it's based in the United States or not. Since 1990, research-based framework. The Search Institute has studied developmental assets in the lives of millions of young people across the United States and around the world.
Okay.
Research consistently shows that young people from all backgrounds do better when they have a strong foundation of these strengths in their lives. So again, that's something you could do in your research for this course and for your dissertation is if they truly do have a global base for their research, then that kind of helps to strengthen it.
Okay.
So, well, great. There's it sounds like you have a rabbit trail to go on to do some research.
Yes.
And that could be, I mean, who knows what God's going to do through our time together, but maybe it could be something as simple as you doing a survey on developmental assets with the young people in your community.
That's right.
Well, we just have a few minutes left, and I have to go to a BGU meeting here in about 10 minutes, a staff meeting, or not, I guess about 8 minutes. But are there any other, sounds like you have something to go on between now and next week if you get some time to do some research on the Search Institute, the developmental assets. Anything else that you wanted to touch base with this week?
So I guess for the journaling, I can use, as I said, this past weekend as one. Okay.
Yeah, you can even talk about our, even something, I mean, I'm trying to keep it simple for you. I don't want to overcomplicate everything. So, we had a week one that was kind of introductory. Last week, for your journal entry, you could talk a little bit about those perspectives on transformational mentoring that we went over. And I want to know more what you're thinking after we talked about them. And then for your journal this week, you could talk some about, you could focus most of your journal on the stuff that the workshop and the ceremony. But if you wanted to include, and also we, Brian and I discussed the 40 developmental assets this week, and here's what I think about those, and also critical thinking. So, I mean, honestly, you can say like, I think the whole 40 developmental assets approach is bunk. I don't believe in it, and here's why. I researched it, and I found out three big reasons why I'm not going to apply that to my life and my research.
Okay.
That's okay, Or it could be, oh, this really is these are some great tools for me as I'm moving in this direction, and here's why. Mostly just looking for some of that critical thinking in your journal entries and that type of stuff. So. And then next week when we meet again, I'll maybe introduce. There's a couple more things like that we can just talk about. And anything that if you find anything in your readings or research between now and next week that you want to discuss, we can just bring it up in this time together.
Okay. All right.
All right. Anything else that?
So, question. I keep on thinking about the 25 years you said when the brain is fully developed. And even at the age of 18 doing the rite of passage, I keep on thinking, how do you, I guess I'm trying to put that in perspective, because 18 seems like some premature in saying to these young people, you're a woman, you're a man.
Yeah.
Though I did say, though, that the ceremony doesn't end the relationships. I really, so now I'm even more convinced that, we have to continue that, walking alongside. So it seems to me that's part of what I need to be thinking through. How do you continue that journey? Because at the same time, I'm expecting that these young persons, or 18, are also looking back and saying, who can I guide along the way? So it's that find that balance where you're still helping them, but realizing that they too now at this point should be able to look back and have a Timothy or Tanya behind them.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think you said it. You expressed that really well. I mean, one of the things that I use that in my training with our church volunteers is that we're asking you to intentionally build this relationship from whenever you get matched, whether it's in 3rd grade up through 8th grade, all the way until they graduate from high school. And 18 years old is when they technically age out of our program.
Right.
But in my training I do with them, the expectation is that they're going to have a lifelong friendship then, where it's especially important, even though they might not be in a more formal role.
Right.
After they turn 18, but it's really critical that you stay connected to that young person through their early 20s and mid 20s, because of that brain science that's there. You established a bond, and in each young person is different. So, some young people, as you're aware, hit the ground running when they're ready to be full adults when they're 16. It's responsible, and they got it figured out. But a lot of young people really kind of need some of those extra relational supports through their mid-20s.
You mentioned grade 3. What age is grade 3?
For us, that's about 9 years old, I think.
I mean, the reason why you choose that grade as opposed to grade 1, or what?
Yeah, a lot of that was kind of indicated by the school district that we partnered with. They really started to see, kids would start off in kindergarten, 1st grade, and 2nd grade doing really well. And then right about 3rd and 4th grade is when they would start to see some academic problems, some behavior problems, discipline problems at schools, maybe some acting out behavior. And so what they wanted to do was to try to have an intervention at that stage where they would match up a young person with a mentor from the church, to try to help them out as another support for them.
Okay.
And so it's mostly based on research from the school district. But we have a window from about 9 years old up until about maybe 13 years old or 14 years old as 8th graders, where we'll match up a young person. We don't match up a lot of high schoolers. We want them to stay together through high school.
Right.
High schoolers tend to be so busy, 15 through 18-year-old, that getting a new match kind of established at that age can be a challenge, because of the just after-school activities of the young people and things like that. So
you start matching from as late as 13, but the journey continues to 18, basically.
Yep.
Okay, but start early. Okay.
Yep. And so, but there's other models of doing it. There are some high school only mentor programs that will, match up a mentor for just 1 year in high school. I mean, there's definitely other models. That's just how we've chosen to do it.
Right.
Yeah. We have that window from about 9 years old until, and it builds on, and I have to go in a minute, but it kind of builds on a program that we have for 18 to 25-year-olds that is more involved with young people who end up in gangs or incarcerated or things like that.
Right.
So our mentoring program is kind of our intervention piece
Okay.
to get to that stage. So
Okay.
we do things like work with the police and things like that when they get a little bit older.
Right.
All right, Audley, I'm sorry to cut our time
Okay,
short.
thank you.
I was
All right.
connecting with you, and I'll see you next Tuesday, okay?
Next Tuesday. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.